Hi, everyone. This is the Incept Connect podcast. I am John Osberg, growth strategist at Incept Digital here in downtown Buffalo, New York. I am joined in studio today by someone I hold in regards of entrepreneurial royalty. I've said that before when we play golf with our friend Steve Colton. It's cool to be in your presence, man, your energy, what you do to build community and commerce all at the same time. Welcome to the show, Mr. Pete Cimino. What's going on, brother?
Thank you very much. Feelings mutual.
Thanks, man. I appreciate
royalty. That's a new one.
I said it the one time, and I think I retired it because it was kind of like everyone in our foursome was kind of like playing golf. They were like, yeah, okay, take it easy. But it's true, man. I mean, what you've done to build the brand, the ethos, the lifestyle that comes with, Lloyd. Where's Lloyd? What you've done, the trailblazing you've done. It's amazing. So first, a hearty kudos and thanks from me and all those, that you've positively affected, both your team and yourself. You've done some awesome work, man. So glad to have you on the show. Glad to have you here, and glad to start talking a little bit about who you are, your path to now and where you're going. I'd love to educate the audience, for those that may not know you, on those couple things. If we could start there.
Cool. Yeah. Appreciate the kind words.
Yeah.
You make me blush.
Under that big, beautiful beard. Yeah. I got to get mine trimmed down a little bit. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, it's all good. So, yeah, just a little bit about Lloyd and
about yourself. Yeah.
Cool. So, had this wacky idea to start a food truck. At that point, my vocabulary wasn't really very well developed. I think I called it a food van.
Food van.
I was making an exit. My background's in math. Ended up teaching at some local high schools, and always had this entrepreneurial bone in my body that just needed to be, shook and or shaken rather.
Yeah.
And so always had a side hustle, and each one progressively got bigger and bigger, taking on a little more risk. Had one that I really wanted to knock out of the park, but it was my first endeavor where I realized I didn't have the resources, talent, capital to execute on, what I thought was an awesome idea at the time. But ideas are a dime a dozen. So
they are. It's all execution.
But yeah, and just moving into, hey, what can I do? I basically have to either finish my master's degree, which I didn't want to do, or resign. So I actually elected to resign, and gave myself like 3 months. I got to come up with something. My heart's in business. Like, this is where my passion is, and what am I going to do? So everyone's prodding me, all my friends and family, who, by the way, thought I was crazy, which is totally normal.
Usually how it goes.
They're just looking out for someone they love and care about.
Right.
But yeah, I remember telling my brother-in-law and one of my best buddies at the time that, like, I'm going to start a food van.
A food van.
Yeah, so totally ridiculous. So ended up checking out Kogi in LA, and was completely inspired by what Chef Roy Choi was doing over there, and just really resonated with the brand and what he was about, and a lot of similarities, and just was like, I can do this. And just went on a warpath of research, and wow, why don't we have food trucks in Buffalo? And I think, once I delivered the city charter to an attorney buddy of mine who lives out of state, I was like, hey man, can you review this for me? And he's like, yeah. And once he told me that it's not illegal, like, it doesn't explicitly state that you can't do that, then the decision was made that we're going for it. He knew that, he warned me, you're going to get slapped on the wrist and they're going to come after you, but like, just, you can go for it. So the hunt to find a truck began, and ended up buying something off Craigslist, actually sight unseen, from Corpus Christi, Texas. Probably one of the craziest things I've ever done in my entire life, not getting it inspected or flying down there or whatever. Just, literally, an ad in a dream.
So I love that. That's a book, an ad in a dream. Yeah, that could be your book, your New York Times bestseller one day. Seriously, an ad in a dream.
I'll take it.
Let's do it.
And then, so carving a path, after the truck got here, minus all of the mechanical issues and the truck dying the first month we were on the road and whatnot. But just in working with the city to try to develop something where we could get started. Because with there being no trucks, like I just wanted to be the first. The race was on. I didn't care about anything else. A book I read, The 22 Immutable Laws of Marketing, just one of them is about being first, and just like, we can worry about being the best later, but at least if we're the first, people will have a memory of that.
Trailblazer,
and that'll
right?
be something.
Yeah.
So, just in working with the city that first year and a half, like there wasn't really a lot going on. We would step out of bounds and not try to not be open at just Main and Mohawk down there in the old dingy days, and we'd get shut down, or tried to do some stealth services here or there, and finally realized like we have to do something more, otherwise this is never going to turn into a bona fide business. And a couple other people wanted to start trucks at the time. We assembled a little coalition, hired an attorney, and actually the Institute for Justice came out to help and provide some data to the city. Flew an amazing woman out here to talk to the city council, and from then, like, the food fight with the city was on. And luckily, speaking of community, like, everyone came out in support, and I think that like was the genesis for cultivating that following and like just rallying around what change was going to be in Buffalo, and just things starting to become a little more progressive at the time. And she had said something to the effect of like, you don't want the city to be on the wrong side of history here. And I think like everyone's ears kind of perked up. And so I'm just happy we were a part of that positive change.
Wow.
And one turned into two through a Kickstarter campaign, and two turned into three. And then truck 4 was on the way, and somewhere between 3 and 4, I had a wacky idea to enter us into a television show. We went on it, we won. It was a fantastic time, and then came back, and after turning down the investment off camera, after due diligence, we opened our first taco factory on Hurl 7 years ago, which is insane to think about.
7 years.
Almost 7 years ago, 6.5. And then a couple years later, Williamsville and Churn, and world got wacky last couple of years, so Elmwood was on pause, and we're working on that right now. So that kind of brings us to today.
Incredible story.
In the least long-winded way I could possibly give you.
Honestly, I learned something. I mean, I've known you for a little bit, right? But I learned some things in there, and I love the food van. I love that phrase, man. The food van. What was it again? An ad and a dream. I mean,
an ad and a dream.
It's how it all starts.
Yeah.
That's how it all starts. So amazing. And what is it? 12 years now that this thing's all been going.
As of last week, 12 years. Yeah.
12 years.
Yeah.
Huge congrats.
I can't
man.
even. Yeah.
Where does time go? Where does time go? Isn't it something? But it like you just touched on through that kind of that overview, community probably was at the heart of a lot of that journey, right? The support of our community, of a community which food is just like anywhere, but here it seems like it's really hyper frenzied, hyper passionate.
Just like our sports,
just like the food
and our food.
So any use cases on how the communities, well, you know what? Let's step back. How did you build the brand? Like, I look at this beautiful purple brilliant hat here with white letters and green outline. It pops right off that beautiful New Era cap hat.
Thanks, man.
For sure. So just some thoughts on how you built the ethos of Lloyd, like the name itself, and just any of that, any insight you'd be willing to share is cool.
Yeah. I had a lot of help. Luckily, surrounded by great people, and one of the people I leaned on was my sister to help with this idea of what the company was going to be. And I was so proud of my list. I was tasked with naming the company, and I narrowed my list of 100 down to 10. And all I knew was that like people name boats, so like, I don't know, we should name a truck, and it should be a human's name. and that was kind of it. And she tore up my list and was basically like, how about Lloyd? And I was like, what are you talking about? It's not on my list. And she's like, that's exactly why. And we just got on this kick of Where's Waldo turned into Where's Lloyd, people needing to find the truck. And the story that we were just building organically, it was way more interesting than Pete and Chris's taco truck. So that just, once we turned that into social media and let people run with it and played with the story and leaned into it, and people would come up to the truck and say, "Where's Lloyd? Who's Lloyd?" And we'd literally tell a story about, oh, he's backpacking in Indonesia right now or whatever, and just kept telling all these tall tales, and then people would contribute their own, and it kind of grew into this thing.
Creativity, then. That's so Lloyd just stuck out to your sister and
just popped out and
just clicked.
Yeah, and then luckily in terms of like brand and design and UX and all that, Helm has always been in our corner. So
shout out.
Kudos to them for always keeping us on point and helping us look sharp and all that, So I think it was just a perfect storm of when social media was starting to take off.
Yeah. And
I honestly don't think that, because food trucks existed prior to then, albeit in other cities and mostly, the Roach Coach idea of, but like what Roy Choi did to change things, like someone like a legit chef in the game deciding, no, I'm leaving my post to open a truck. I think that sent some shock waves and got the Food Network's attention and stuff. But using social media to tell everyone where you're going to be. I know this seems like a crazy idea in 2022, but at the time it was.
I think it's an awesome idea still. I think it's, so I love it. And, what I'm curious to hear is, entrepreneurship, right? It isn't for the faint of heart. From math teacher to, food. I don't know how truly you would consider yourself, but like kind of experiential food entrepreneur, just killing it 12 years into this game, multiple locations, multiple trucks, growing, the love and support of the community, plans to continue to expand your horizons. From math teacher to food entrepreneur, imagine you've got, someone out there who has maybe not the exact transition, but it's something that's kind of we'll call it unorthodox, right? What might you say to someone watching or listening here that is an engineer at a local company, but wants to get into, I don't know, being an esthetician or whatever it is, something like that you need transition? What would you say?
Totally. I can only speak from, myself and my experience. But I would say that it's important to fail, and it's important to fail early and often. Going for those things, whatever they are, the younger you are is a little bit easier. You have less restrictions, less responsibilities. Not to say that people can't do it when they're older. I think me at 28 at the time or whatever it was, I would say some people might have said it's already too late. But when I'm talking to college kids or whoever, it's just like, do it now, and don't be afraid. So I think
that's beautiful. At
least for me, it was like I had tried these things, in the midnight hours and being a weekend warrior and all that. And I was very grateful that teaching gave me that schedule to be able to do that.
Right.
But like I didn't really win until I put myself in a position where I had to win. So for me, it was about stripping everything else away and saying, go out and do it, and that means burning all the boats.
Is that what you're just going to say?
What I was just literally exactly what I was just going to say. And I know not everyone operates that way. Some people need the safety, the security, whatever the case, but like, for me, entrepreneurship was about freedom, and you can't have safety and security and freedom at the same time. Like those are opposing ideas.
Wow.
So,
that's beautiful.
Yeah. And I think just taking those lumps during teaching with some of the other business endeavors, some of them being absolute failures, some of them being profitable, but not enough because there was too many partners, and like it just, each thing just, honing the axe every time and just keep swinging. Keep swinging.
It's funny because
the engineer, don't be afraid. And if you're not the sales marketing brand guy, find a partner that is that thing. And I think in my earlier days, learning more about finding complementary partnerships would have served me better. So
yeah, I love it. And I was just going to call back to some mutual friends of ours. who were in here yesterday, not to date this because this is an evergreen podcast, but yesterday we had David Gonzalez and Fabio Osorio of Arbol, who you are well connected to and big support of. And I remember asking a similar question to both David and Fabio. David's question was just like you, just start, right? You'll never be able to actually, iterate on it if there's nothing to iterate on, which means if you don't start, well, where can you go with it? And a lot of times fear gets in the way of that. And that's where, like you said, you got to strip. I think for you, for me, for guys like us, that's something that works, but find your own version of burning the boats, right? It may not be going all in on everything and saying, I'm going to go literally just to this, but maybe you're in 3 or 4 different things that you're involved in, maybe skinny it down to 2 or 1. In terms of just a highlight, like if you're involved in a lot of different endeavors, but you really want to like go deep on A, but you're in B, C, D, maybe get rid of C and D to start. That could be your burning the boats, your own version. So it's great advice, man.
Yeah. No, I think that's fair. We've all got 24 hours, and I think that's what's fascinating. How are some people, you can call it more or less productive with those 24 hours, and like, what's your brain food, what are you taking in every day if you don't have the confidence to build the confidence, or I don't know.
That's really compelling. That's resonant for me right now. And some of the things I'm working through, right? That word confidence is big. And I think you get confidence through repetition, through experience, through support of people, through support of your community.
That's why I said swing the bat.
Swing it, man.
Like reps.
And then we talk fitness a lot. I know we were in a thread with Yoga Steve Procknell recently about getting into some fitness. So, I certainly know that in that world too. Like it's anywhere. It's in your role. It's at home. It's in your fitness. It's in whatever. It's all. Yeah. So it's a Tommy Rivesism. It's stress. What is it? Stress plus rest. No, stress plus rest times consistency. I'll say it one more time. So stress. So like in fitness, you're moving your body. You got to recover, and you multiply that by consistency, and that's what's the formula to success in his eyes. Totally. And I love it. Sorry, you were gonna say.
No, it's cool. And just like to riff off that is like this idea actually, which is really weird that I found through yoga, but then later compared it to something that Seth Godin always talks about. And I think his inspiration for talking about that is The War of Art with Stephen Pressfield, right? This idea of just like you get on the mat every day. Each day is going to be different. You're not always going to be doing the handstands. You're not always going to be able to stay in the warriors. Like same thing. Like if you're working on a business idea or you're writing it's just important that you do it. Not every time's going to be perfect, but you just do it. You show up. And that consistency trumps talent, in my opinion. Like across the board. Some people might even say that consistency develops talent, but
I mean, think about it. If you're not on the mat, then how are you building? How are you building off of your talent? Right? That's beautiful. Yeah. I love it. Quick segue to kind of the penultimate question would be, what's today like for Lloyd? I know you mentioned earlier about Elmwood, but what give us a quick insight into what today's the opportunities, the challenges, just so folks that are watching and listening have an understanding of that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a challenging time. It's also an exciting time. We've gone through an insane amount of change. In the last 2 years, I would say has felt probably more like a decade. And I think any business that has gone through that and is surviving and is coming out the other end, there's some form of an adaptation that has to happen. I feel lucky that we have had to adapt along the way, and it's one of the reasons why we are where we are now. And this is just another period of like adapting and trying to pull on different levers and adjust different knobs because there's a new machine now. It's like the old machine, the way it ran, it can't run that way anymore. And I think the challenge to me as an owner is like in figuring that out, So the team has gone through a lot. We're still building. Customers are coming back in mass. It's fantastic. And we just need to balance how long does the DoorDash world stay? Right. Or how long does online ordering stay? Or and how do we get orders out in a fast way? And for me, being the experience guy and building this space literally for community and interaction, and there's a reason why we have a community table there, and then to have that pulled away, it's like, well, when I think about the digital space, what is the new community? What is the new experience? Is it the thing you get inside of your bag when your food's delivered? Or so there's been a lot of interesting exploration during the last 2 years. But yeah, mostly hiring.
Yep.
Mostly hiring,
Yep.
There's a lot of burnout in the industry in particular, and people have gone through a lot. Yeah. So we're still growing and still,
which is huge.
Still ready to take on more.
That's huge. So you need the people to staff it, and
you need the people to do it.
Is there a place we could point the folks to?
Totally, yeah. where'sLloyd.com/careers.
Yep.
Send us a message on Instagram, whatever. We'll it's up there.
We'll put it in the show notes as always. So and you're not alone, right?
Yeah.
I think it's everywhere.
Yeah.
Incept, we're looking for people too.
Yeah.
Anywhere, any industry, they're looking for the right people to come in and kind of right seats rolling in the right direction.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It's one of those things where it's like, you're cruising, right? So we had plans to open Elmwood, and then this happens, and it's a jarring effect, right? And through that disruption, also, in our industry, financing isn't the same anymore. I think before then, restaurants were already considered high risk, but now it's like some other ultra high level of risk. So that's changed for us, and we're trying to look at creative ways to finance and keep these projects going and moving along. So
cool, man. So exciting things, growth. You're looking for some people to continue fueling that growth.
Totally.
Some exciting projects. Is there anything you wanted to share near the end here that's relevant? You mentioned, I think about yoga and how that helps balance out a lot of things as an entrepreneur, right? In kind of a high-paced environment. It's something that I'm starting to explore. Mindfulness has been something that I've been doing with fitness, but not actual true yoga. And I just ran into John Spitz the other day. Was with Yoga Steve over the weekend. So I'm getting, and of course, you yourself are a yogi. If that's the right term, I don't even know. Is that word? Are you a yogi? Like, how does that? I'm using terms and I'm not even in the space really. But
you're good.
Any parting words on just kind of the connection of mind, body, spirit, and with yoga as the foundation?
Yeah, found yoga accidentally through trying to heal an injury, and I never thought that I would get out of it. Like, my perception of it is not what it is. And I think people who've known me for more than 5 years, have seen the shift, right?
Yeah, good.
I'm not as fiery and temperamental and ridiculous and off the handle, and so I think that it's helped me, the mental game, a lot, which I think makes me a better leader than I was, and it's taught me a lot of things: patience, compassion. I'm not really an empath, like just so many things now that have made it more like 360. Also the physical part, but yeah, I think it's some kind of mindfulness practice. Doesn't have to be yoga, doesn't have to be formal meditation, but something along those lines I think is great for anybody.
Safe space, a haven of sorts.
Yeah,
that's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. I'm going to take what the universe is serving up to me, and I need to action it, because like you said at the beginning with entrepreneurship, I could apply it to myself. Just start with yoga, right? Just start. It doesn't have to be perfect. Show up to the mat, like you said. We have so many common interests and authors we've read and respect. You mentioned Gold, you mentioned Pressfield. We talk about burning the boats, and all those things are relevant, man. So
it's like take the first step. Something about the staircase, and the first step's always the hardest. Or
Lao Tzu would say that the journey to 1,000 miles is to take that first.
Maybe that's what it is then.
Yeah, beautiful. So, lastly, then is quick. Where do we connect? Where do we find both with yourself, and obviously with the more so with the brand? How do we find you guys?
Let's see, the brand. where'sLloyd.com. We're on Instagram, Lloyd Taco Factory. Mostly social, Twitter. And
got the locations, and you got Hurdle, you got Williamsville, and where were the others? I'm sorry.
And that the food trucks, and then Churn. Yeah, we didn't even talk about Churn.
That's a pretty cool piece.
The redheaded sister.
Colleagues, one of my colleagues will be there tonight for her birthday, as we talked beforehand.
Churn's actually going hard on retail ice cream sandwiches.
Sweet.
Into stores, and so that's fun. We'll see.
Quick high level on Churn for those that may not know it then.
Churn, sister brand of Lloyd. spin-off, got real wacky there, and decided we wanted to try our hand at making soft serve from scratch, which is not an undertaking for the faint of heart. But
No.
it turns out it's a lot more science than art. And so that was a fun ride. We learned a ton through that experience.
That's so cool.
And the ice cream sandwiches have really caught fire. So we're leaning into that. Give the people more what they want. And working to find a co-packing solution for that so that we could have greater distribution than just right here.
Yeah. Cool, man. So check out Lloyd, the trucks, the locations, the brand online, Churn. Check out Pete. He's incredibly inspiring. If you didn't notice that now, I want to say a big thanks to you.
A lot of open positions and
positions.
If you want to grow with a company that's growing and
doing cool things, man. You're doing cool things. So that about wraps it up. My brother, thanks for coming out. Good to see you. This was great. And we'll see you on the next podcast.